We have the honor of having with us today Her Excellency Ambassador Hellenic Kounalakis, who has just written a wonderful book, which is a must-read, Madam Ambassador, 3 Years of Diplomacy, Dinner Parties and Democracy in Budapest. She was appointed as ambassador to Hungary by President Barack Obama. We're very honored to have you, Your Excellency. Tell us a little bit about your background. You were born and raised in Sacramento, first-generation Greek-American.
That's right. So my father immigrated from Arcadia, right outside of the town of Tripoli, and I grew up on the banks of the Sacramento River, and our community was basically all of the Greek-American community, our church community, and many years later found myself as the first Greek-American woman to be an American ambassador, which is something that I'm very proud of.
We're all very proud, and that is very important. We must stress the fact that you are the first Greek-American woman ambassador to the United States. And we want to empower women watching you because you've been a successful businesswoman. You decided to go into politics and high-level government service. Tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to change your career.
Well, I always wanted to serve in some way, to serve my country. But you have to find the opportunities. And when you're in business, many times that takes the form of volunteering and supporting civic organizations. And I did a lot of that, and I found it very fulfilling. But my husband was the one really who came up with this idea. His family's from the island of Crete, but he was born, like I was, in Northern California. He's from San Francisco. And he had served as a foreign correspondent. So he knew that there is this small category of American ambassadors who are political appointees from the private sector. And he encouraged me very early to seek a posting.
Growing up Greek in Sacramento, I want you to tell me a little bit more about your family. Were you pushed to do the Greek thing of just getting married and having children? How did your family feel about you becoming a career woman as well?
So we're 6 kids, 1 boy and 5 girls. And I think my father was in that category of Greek fathers that looked around at all these opportunities for young girls, for women, and thought, I want my daughters to achieve things too. And so he was flexible enough, and I think, as I said, many Greek American men looked at the opportunity that existed for their daughters and wanted them to have a chance at those things as well.
Well, you had a challenging post-communist transition to democracy. Tell us a little bit about those challenges.
Well, it was a challenge, and I do talk quite a bit about this in my book. Hungary was a Soviet satellite country, and the United States has worked with them over 25 years to help them with their transition to democracy. But democracies are always works in progress. They're not easy to sustain. Our democracy certainly isn't perfect, but we are the longest running democracy in the history of the world, and certainly the most notable one. And we share these experiences with countries that are looking to strengthen their own. And so this was a tumultuous time, I think, for the Hungarians, and the United States engaged. And it wasn't what I thought would be happening when I got to Budapest, but it ended up being a very intense experience, and one that I wanted to be able to write about, not just for the Greek American community, of which I'm so proud, but also really anyone who wants to have a sense of how the United States engages with its diplomacy and advances our interests and our values around the world.
So what are some of the memories that you've taken with you from this experience?
I have so many memories, so many wonderful memories of the Hungarian people and their graciousness. Some incredible memories that are afforded to you by your status in a country. I walked into rooms in universities that people just don't get to go into. Rooms that for 100 years have housed collections of books that were put together by counts and countesses during the Austro-Hungarian Empire that survived a very tumultuous time for Hungary in the 20th century. So it's a very privileged position to be in. And again, I wanted to share some of those experiences, which is why I came home and wrote this book.
Well, we're all going to buy it. We all have to read it. And we're all going to get on Amazon and we're going to talk about it. Give me a little bit of insight. I mean, you have all the insight on how the United States implements foreign policy. What is the United States position on the Greek economic crisis?
Well, I'm really happy that you asked about that because I think it's something that your viewers are very interested in, and it's something that I think about now on a daily basis, and I do what I can to engage. Greece and the United States have had a very strong and productive relationship for well over a century. And I think it's very important for Greek Americans to remind their friends and their colleagues and their communities that Greece and the United States, we were allies during World War I, we were allies during World War II, and after a terrible civil war, Greece ended up on the right side of the Cold War with us. And this relationship is very important, not just because of this sentimentality, either of the history or of being Greek Americans. It's important because Greece is a strategically located country and a very, very reliable friend. And we need to see a Greece that is strong and stable, not just because we want to see the best outcome for the Greek people, which of course we do, but also because we want to see the best security position for Europe and for the United States. And so reminding our friends out there of this long relationship and the strength of the relationship between the Greece and the United States is very important. And it's something that I have been doing as much as I can, as often as I can, over these last few months, as Greece finds itself again on the precipice.
Because of your Greek background, what is your advice to some of the Greek citizens watching today on how they can overcome these horrible times?
Greeks have persevered. They are survivors. And it is most important that the Greek people have the basics, certainly, and I know that there are major efforts underway. I'm part of the Hellenic Initiative, which is doing our part to try to help organize the support for the humanitarian crisis that is existing there. But everybody in our communities can do what they can to help. If you have family, if you have friends, if you have a little bit that you can help with them, I really encourage people to do that. But the Greeks will muddle through. And I think that, again, there is a psychological aspect of this, and reminding our friends and our family in Greece of their important role in history, of their fortitude at this time, and of how special Greece is. President Clinton visited Greece a few years ago, and he said something that I thought was so profound. He said, in the middle of this crisis, that the Greek people are very rich. They are rich in their culture, they are rich in their history, and they are rich in their geography, which is something we cannot forget. And that these things together will help them persevere. But mostly we need to remind them that we are with them and that there is solidarity.
You are a great supporter of Hellenic Studies. You have founded 2 chairs in Georgetown University. How important is it to continue Hellenism on many levels, not only language, but the studies?
So my husband and I founded a chair at Georgetown and one at Stanford. And we're very passionate about Hellenism. And what I really like about the idea of Hellenism is that this is something that we share with many Americans. And we live in communities where there's lots of intermarriage and many people coming into our culture. And as Greeks, we welcome that. But whether you can trace, how far back you can trace your Greek bloodline, the fact of the matter is when you embrace Hellenism, you're embracing Greek culture, and that is an unbreakable bond that we have with our past.
And a message to the Greek American women who are watching us about empowering them to follow through on what they believe and what they want to accomplish in life on a career basis, and how they should, perhaps pursue a political career.
Well, look, so it's been said, and I'm very proud to be the first Greek American woman to be a United States ambassador, but I don't want to be the only one for long. So I hope that young women out there who are thinking about what they might want to do if you love languages, if you love travel, if you love history, if you love political science and you love politics, read the book, and hopefully it will help to give you a roadmap of what you might be able to do to one day also become a Greek-American ambassador.
Madam Ambassador, ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. I say to you Greek, γιατί μιλάς και λίγα ελληνικά, μιλάτε?
Βέβαια, προσπαθώ.
Where can someone find the book?
Well, you can find it at your local bookstore. I'm a big fan of bookstores, and if we don't buy books from the bookstores, we're not going to have them anymore. So that's the first place to look, but if you have trouble, you can always go to Amazon and order it there. So this book is called Madam Ambassador, 3 Years of Diplomacy, Dinner Parties, and Democracy in Budapest. I'm so honored and happy to be here with Father Alex Carloutos and Presbyteric Xanthi to be part of this lecture series that you have here in Southampton. It's so beautiful. Father Alex was driving me around a little this afternoon, and of course he gave me a tour of the church, and it's just beautiful and a beautiful community.
Well, tonight's event is really extraordinary. We have Ambassador Yanna Kounalakis, Tsakopoulos. She was the first woman ambassador of Greek heritage, and she went to the great country of Hungary. She's an outstanding diplomat. She played a very pivotal role in the election of the 2016. Of course, she's a strong supporter of Hillary, and she has been a friend of mine for many years.
Well, we have this peculiarity to the system of the U.S. Foreign Service, where most of our ambassadors are career Foreign Service officers that make their way up through the ranks. But we also have these slots that are allocated to people from the outside of the State Department to come in and serve. And I was very honored and privileged to be an American ambassador. And I had to look to the things that I could bring to the experience as I worked to lead Embassy Budapest as effectively as I could.
I'm so happy to see a woman, establish herself to this degree. It's wonderful. It's wonderful, that a lady is has risen to this degree of recognition. It's wonderful.
I'd like to invite our dear lady ambassador to the podium to tell us about this very interesting book and her fascinating journey as the first lady Greek-American ambassador for the United States.
Bringing democracy to the world is a slow, painstaking process, and not one that can be forced upon nations. But America, despite all her faults and folly, all of her tragic mistakes, is still the largest force for the advancement of freedom and democracy, the most powerful force for good that exists in the world.
I was happy to introduce the Johnny's Family Foundation lecturer tonight, Ambassador Tsakopoulos, and we're very proud to have here in our parish the first lady woman Greek ambassador to the United States. And as I always tell people, as Greek Americans, είμαστε ελληνικά κόκαλα σε ξένη χώρα, and we're very proud of our country always. And we always go through ups and downs, but Greece will always come through.
It was very inspirational for women and for children and for the young women to learn, about what Eleni, the ambassador, does and how she got where she was. And it was the hard work that she did, to get where she was.
Well, it was a very difficult country. 20 years ago, it was 25 years ago behind the Iron Curtain. So a lot changed, and there were some extraordinary leaps forward with their transition to democracy after the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact. But there's still a lot of things that they don't, that you have in a mature democracy, but you still have to work toward in a democracy that's really only 25 years old. 1 year into my ambassadorship, I was more convinced than ever that there was indeed a battle between good and evil that raged in the world. I didn't think of this blessing strictly in religious terms. My years of work promoting interfaith understanding had made me respectful and embracing of all the world's religions. To me, it was about the rule of law, democracy, and freedom.
Ambassador Hellenic Kounalakis shared her experience with the Greek American audience in her book, Madam Ambassador, 3 Years of Diplomacy, Dinner Parties, and Democracy in Budapest.